So I was sent an article a couple of days ago from The Atlantic. I don't know if you saw this, but it was a very lengthy article that was published in The Atlantic last week. That it was I forget the exact title. It sounded like Elon Musk wants to bring Dungeons and Dragons back to its racist roots, or something like that. Like that was it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever read. It's behind a paywall, so you have to be ingenious to get to it. But
I could just see in my mind's eye the person who typed that one up, though.
no, this is the interesting part, right? I was like going, well, what the hell? Like, first of all, Elon Musk he complained about what the D&D people were doing, like in they did the anniversary book of like the history of D&D, right? That was written by a bunch of these woke so-called RPG historians, right? That essentially in their introduction they condemned Gary Gygax for his racism and sexism and homophobia and all that sort of thing. So, but that happened like, I think it was at the beginning of the year or maybe like late last year, right? It's like way behind, right? And I'm wondering, like, why the hell would this guy be writing about this now, right? Because it's not like Elon Musk has done anything after that, right? Like he said, "Oh, this is terrible. You how dare you, insult the name of Gary Gygax?" Because he played D&D as a kid and he liked it, right? And that was basically it, right? But this guy, so I looked, and it turns out that the guy who's written this he's a Brazilian, and that explains a lot, because I've been told by, there are some really great, very based Brazilian RPG gamers. There's some who are fans of mine, for example, and I appreciate you guys. But a lot of them have told me that a very big part of the RPG hobby in Brazil, which is big, tends to be these kind of, they've gone really all in on this kind of woke leftism stuff, right?
Yeah.
Which is funny because, in Uruguay, you've got a very large share of kind of commie people too, but the culture here, for whatever reason, is like, where when you're gaming, you don't really talk about politics. And I'm sure there's some groups here somewhere that play, I don't know, feminist D&D or something, but it's not, there isn't that kind of push in the community of D&D players in Uruguay. But in Brazil, apparently there is, right? And this is a guy, he's he was partially raised in America because his dad was a diplomat. So that means instantly he's part of that like 1% of Brazilian society, right? He's a champagne socialist.
Yeah.
And he decided to write this, and he wrote it like a year too late, like, and the funniest thing is that he's talking about how, like, D&D will never go back to that because the 5th edition was so incredibly successful. And it's become so successful because of its modern values that it now has, inclusion in this, and that's a complete lie, because 5th edition became successful before it got wokeified.
Yes.
And from the moment it got wokeified, its sales started to collapse to the point that now the 5.5 edition, like the other day, Mad Scribe, who publishes Baptism of Fire and Sword and Caravan, my games, some of my games, commented on Diversity in Dragons channel, right? That when 5.5 edition came out, there were games of mine on Amazon, which is not the place that I promote them, right? I promote them to Drive Through RPG because we get a better cut, right? But the sales figures in some of the categories were beating 5.5 edition, right? And I am not I'm not the top seller of the OSR, right? Like, not even close, right? I sell pretty well. I mean, I make a living off it, right? I'm one of maybe a dozen people who make a full-time living off it. But the idea that like Baptism of Fire was outselling 5.5 in Amazon, right? It tells you just how horribly bad their sales are, So like this guy was just completely lost. And on top of it, like I saw a video on YouTube. I wish I'd saved the video so I could post the link here, because it was really quite fantastic. I'm going to just check to see if I can look it up in my YouTube history here for a second. But there was somebody who did a very good video on this. let me just see, because it's got to be somewhere in my history because I watched the whole thing. No, it wasn't there. Problem is, I watch a lot of YouTube these days.
Yeah.
I'm gonna find it here.
Well, if someone does, I'm not surprised that Baptism of Fire is selling well, because it's a beautiful product. It looks awesome. When you put that up, like a product like that, up against the gruel that you have of D&D 2024, just slop. It's just, it's a no-brainer. Like what do I want to spend my money on? What do I want to spend my time with? It's if that guy was right, and you're right, like he wrote his article a year and a half too late. I don't know why. Maybe he just wants to try and stir the pot again, but the market speaks too at the same time, and like people that like they're not buying D&D 2024. There's no fervor out there for it. A lot of people are like defaulting to their old 5th edition, or they're like looking to other games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like you can only like you can like infiltrate their minds with like communism and stuff like that, but like when it comes to like having them like put their money down, that's like a whole other barrier that you have to.
Communists don't actually care. They care about destroying the existing culture, and like specifically in this article in the Atlantic, the guy was talking about how D&D in the old days was driven by heroic fantasy, but heroic fantasy is actually a kind of a fascist construction or something like that. Like it's just so ridiculous. Okay, I found the YouTube guy that did a video on this. I'd never heard of this guy before. He's called the Archcast. I'm surprised I haven't heard of him before, but I think he does like more like video game stuff most of the time, which is probably why. And so I'm just going to post the link here for people who want to. Don't go to it now, but go to it after we're done the live stream. So he did a really good takedown video of this article, and like he pointed out, and this is true, that the guy continually says, as a black man, right? I felt this or that, right? Like he does it like multiple times in the article, right? And if you look at the bio picture of him, like. And this is not uncommon in Brazil, right? He's a very, very light-skinned guy, right? He's very clearly what in the U.S. would be called biracial, if that, right? Like, I mean, he might be only like a quarter black or something.
Oh, wow.
And so, like, he looks very, very not black from the point of view of certainly of the United States or UK or something like that, right? But I still understand that he could identify as that, because in Brazil there's this very strict kind of colorist hierarchy, right? Like that you've got Brazilians that are like pure descendants of Portuguese, and then you have Brazilians who are of mixed race to some degree, right? So I think that's probably a bit of a culture association, but it's still like he's really leaning into
the race card
skin color a bit too much for a guy as light skinned as he is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not racially sensitive about stuff. I'm not. I think it's silly.
Well, I think that he was doing it to give his bona fides as part of the progressive stack, right? He wanted to make it clear he's not a white guy, right? So.
Yeah. Put his credentials there. Yeah. I introduced a friend of mine, Sam, and you see it on our videos, to D&D. He's never played it before. He's a black guy, and he loves it. He's having a good time. And I have told him like about like what the new current D&D does, and like I showed him like, for instance, like that picture of like Gay Village or whatever that was, and he's like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with that. but he loves playing with us, you know, because it's like, it's just fun. It's adventure and stuff like that. And it's like, we don't have to make a whole thing about, is this okay for Black people or whatever? It's like, look, this is fun. Let's go have fun and we'll play.
Well, there's really only one demographic that wants to play D&D, and that's gamers right now.
Yeah.
The nature of culture means that there are certain other demographic groups that are going to tend to have more gamers and others that'll have less, right? If you come from a culture where playing tabletop games is not like a high priority, you're less likely to become a gamer, right? And on the other hand, if you come from a culture that does, you're more likely to. And so like that is what explains the racial and gender demographics, right? Because it's like I always think of H.G. Wells made the first modern war game. Basically, it was called Little Wars, right? And the full title of it was Little Wars, a war game of toy soldiers or something like that for boys and for the smarter type of girls who like boys games. Right? That was the actual title. It was like in 1913 when it came out, right? So and there's a lot of truth to that, right? Like it's not there are some girls that are going to really enjoy it. There's also a higher likelihood that a girl won't enjoy it compared to a boy, right? Like that's just a biological reality, right? And on the other hand, it's not, I don't think that it's like someone who is not white is biologically inclined not to like it, but they could very well be culturally inclined not to like it, right? One of the reasons that RPGs have not really blown up in places like India or China is because the culture there is very different. People don't get together to play table games, right? Like unless you're talking about gambling, right? In China at least, right? In China, gambling is huge, but playing group board games is not really a thing,
Do you think it might have something also to do with like just the setting, like the idea of like a medieval Europe that they just don't really get into?
I don't think so, and I can tell you because of living in South America, right? Like because people always, like that's always been one of the woke arguments is that if we make a game that is themed to if it's African themed, then more Black people will play it, right? Or if we make a game that has like elements of Filipino culture, then more Filipinos are going to play it, and that's patently untrue. And I can tell you why, because I've been in Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay, and there's significant gamer culture in all three of those. RPG gamers, right? Tabletop RPG gamers. And in those places, like the most popular games, like in Uruguay, are Dungeons and Dragons, World of Darkness, because they didn't realize, they don't know it's dead yet, I guess. And Call of Cthulhu, and so that Call of Cthulhu is huge in Brazil. Brazil also has their own industry of games, but like the games that they've made there, one of them is basically a Dungeons and Dragons clone, right? Like it's heroic fantasy. Okay. Another one that's very popular there is a game called Defensores de Tokyo, which is a Brazilian game where you basically play guys in mecha, anime style mecha things fighting against Godzilla-like monsters. Like in none of these places will you find that a game about Brazilian culture or about a Uruguayan culture or Argentinian culture is the most popular, right? And some people have tried to like make those, but they don't really sell, right? Like people want to play Star Wars, or they want to play D&D, or they want to play Call of Cthulhu. They want to play the exact same thing that people in North America or the UK want to play, right? Like it's
So well, that's very interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting.
It's a thematic cultural aspect, right? And like people might play D&D in a different setting if they want to, right? But like the most popular settings are still like the Forgotten Realms or generic kind of medieval-ish fantasy settings.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it always will be. Yeah, it's just that's the fantasy genre. There's so much there, Yeah, no, that's a very interesting observation. Yeah, because I was thinking that maybe that was like a significant part of it, but now maybe not. I don't, Well, I will say, like, my friend Sam, who's the black guy in the game, he wanted to play, and he had no idea about any of this, like, baggage with the industry. He wanted to play a half orc character in our Dragon Slayer game. And so, like, he's going to, and I told him, like, people don't think well of half orcs, so you're going to experience some of that in the game. And so he already has a little bit, and to him, it's like he doesn't say anything about it. Like, to him, it's just like it's the game. You know what I mean? It's like, and I expect that he will never ever make some kind of like personal thing out of it. Because like it's just the it's the element of the game. You know what I mean? And like, we're immersing ourselves in this game world with these tensions and things like that. And it's like, he's not the type of guy that's ever going to take like some kind of personal offense for that. Like, so like we could play and like have like a normal fun time and still have those features in the game where, there are those tensions, and we don't have to be like woke WotC 2024 and like trying to all that.
Like one of the things that really, beyond everything else that wokeism has done, it's incredible the way that it's like pussified liberals, because and one of the perfect examples is the most Mormon of D&D settings, Dragonlance, right? That in Dragonlance, the newest version, the one that came out for 5th edition, they decided that they had to change a whole bunch of stuff, right? Now, if you've read the Dragonlance novels, right, there's these guys, the Knights of Solamnia, right, who only allowed men, and they had to be from Solamnia, right? It was like a nationalist knightly order. And, there was... So there were those kind of restrictions, right? And then, but in the course of the novels, by the end of the series, the Knights of Solamnia changed their mind about some of these things. They realized they'd become too rigid, and that almost cost them very badly in the War of the Lands. And so they eventually end up allowing for like, even like for a half elf to become a Knight of Solamnia, or for a woman to be a Knight of Solamnia if they've proven themselves, right? And so that's like, that's a very classic 1980s sort of liberal concept, right? Like you see it in a lot of fantasy novels where there's like the beginning of the story, there's like certain injustices in the world, and then over the course of the events and the heroism that is displayed, it leads to some kind of social change, right? But in the 5th edition, they decided to make their book set at the very beginning of the War of the Lands, but you could be like, anybody can be a Knight of Solamnia, right? Anybody can do these things, right? And on top of that, there are, some draconians who aren't evil, and it always starts out because otherwise I'd be prejudiced, right? Like, yes. And so like, what they don't understand is by eliminating that, by eliminating that prejudice, they also eliminate the whole kind of progressive story, right? So even like they destroy even their own kind of ideology in the process, right?
They undermine themselves.
What we want is for everything to instantly be perfect, It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, and then there's no struggle. Like, they've taken the struggle out, because and they did that specifically with their Radiant Citadel. Basically, like that.
Yeah, totally.
It's like here's a communist utopia, and everything's great. Hey, let's have a festival because there's nothing else to do here.
I always called it, the eat, pray, love setting. Like it's just women going on like third world tourism to go to night markets.
Yes.